Hey, this is CB Smallwood, and welcome to Mental Junk Food, where we talk about all things comics, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, pop culture, and everything in between. And it has been a busy, several weeks in the entertainment industry. You know, everything from Star Wars to firings and layoffs and shakeups. Everything from Marvel. Things are happening in Marvel. And now, in the land of DC, Detective Comics, or just DC Comics, apparently there's been a lot of shakeups there with Dan DiDio being fired. Anyway, lot to unpack there, so I'll just go ahead with this headline from Cosmic Book News. Joe Quesada to DC Comics. Ethan Skyver says DC needs a miracle. Now, the first part of that statement is a little bit, I don't know how to put it, very, 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 very misleading. What's that phrase that they often use on YouTube? Clickbait. It's clickbait, I guess. But I'll get to that here in just a second. So let's go ahead and scroll down on this article. Again, I always like to cite my sources. This was written by Matt McCloyne of Cosmic Book News. So if you want to cut out the middleman and read the article in full, I suggest you go there. Now, following the ouster of Dan DiDio, it's suggested that there was talk that Joe Quesada of Marvel Comics might be jumping ship to DC Comics as the new publisher. Before we dive into things below, worth a mention before we continue is that Quesada's good buddy, Brian Michael Bendis, is now over at DC Comics. Worth another mention is that Joe Quesada and Brian Michael Bendis were a part of Ike Perlmutter's Marvel Comics Creative Committee that helped work on the MCU movies. Worth third mention is that Kevin Feige, who is now in charge of practically all of Marvel, and that got along with Perlmutter. Oh my goodness! And disbanding the Marvel Comics creative community. Committee. Worth a fourth mention is I can't go through these all. This is too many mentions. I can't do it. I can't do it. Oh man. I'm a little sick right now, so you have to forgive me the way I'm sounding. So let's skip on down here. So, however, is the rumor of Joe Quesada jumping ship to DC Comics legit or spin? Well, that's a little bit of spin right now. The claims about Joe Quesada potentially jumping ship to DC Comics comes from an article at Bleeding Cool that contains more spin than Rumpelstiltskin. Unbelievable. The first name that I've actually pronounced right through this whole article. As they first claim to have heard the same info in regards to AT&T shutting down DC Comics if the new 5G event fails, but they just have to heard about it, all of the DC events, which is ridiculous and, of course, never reported on it. Ethan Manskyver expands and reacts to the article of his YouTube channel, Comic Artist Pro Secrets, with industry insider information and perspective, where Van Skyver shoots down BC's claims. Well, first of all, before we go any further on this, I just want to point out that that Rob Liefeld, I have to give him some props here. I have to give credit where credit is due, because Rob Liefeld, of all people, was the guy who sounded the alarm year and a half ago. I can't remember how long ago it was. And he told everybody that DC Comics was in trouble. And I was one of these people that was like, I don't know about that, because at the time, DC was starting to cut down from 52 books a month to a lot less. They was cutting things down. And I kind of saw it as a good sign that they're trying to get their house in order, that they're realizing that they're oversaturating the market. I also looked at the fact that they were trying to make some headway into Walmart. Selling their books into Walmart is a step in the right direction. Trying to get books out to people, regular folk. The cigarette companies understood, the tobacco companies understood that in order for them to continue profits through the generations, you had to get the kids addicted. That's right. And comics is no different. If the only people that's buying comics is people our age, from I don't know, like 30s, 40s, and 50s on up, then the future is bleak for comics because we're not getting new readers. There's plenty of readers for manga, whatever, but not enough in the Western comic book industry, and there's a lot of reasons why for that. But we got to get these books back out to the hands of regular folk, who might otherwise not read them, might not know they even exist. Everybody knows the shows and TV shows, the movies exist, but as far as like actual comics, there's actually people that believe that comics is no longer something that's even being printed anymore because they don't see it in gas stations, they don't see it in mom and pop stores, they don't see it anywhere. Anyway, my rant aside, this whole article, it's really interesting, because, like I said, that the times that we're living in, it's very, very interesting time. Just so much is changing, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that, the fans have revolted. The fans have spoken on multiple levels, on multiple subjects, saying that, that these agenda-driven creative teams and editors, and whether it be in Hollywood or in your favorite comic book, are more obsessed with pushing their agenda as opposed to telling a good story, and everybody's just kind of got sick of it, and the fans rebelled, and we saw the outcome of that in the new Star Wars movies and how that's played out in terms of sales and just Twitter fights with directors and everything, on and on it goes. But anyway, we're talking about DC Comics, and it's all related. It's all interchangeable, really. So the article claims that Joe Quesada is going to come to DC Comics. That's a bunch of malarkey. Basically, that comes from bleedingcool.com. You can go check it out for yourself. And Rich Johnston, or Johnson or Johnston, I'm going to say Johnston. He had wrote this article suggesting that a lot of people are saying that, Joe Quesada is being mentioned by nobody, but he claims that it's being mentioned by people that, that he should go to DC and be the publisher, And for those that don't know, DC Comics, like as I said earlier, had fired Dan DiDio. And what a mess that was, Jim Lee, who's the co-publisher of DC Comics, entirely unprepared. He's more of a guy who's interested in, drawing and doing the creative side of things a little bit here and there. But as far as like running the day-to-day operations and the minutia of all this and that, and, that's not really what he wants to get into. I mean, like, I guess for those that may doubt that idea, the best example I can give is he was doing just that to some degree with Wildstorm over at Image, and he got tired of it, and he sold his characters that he owns, his whole company. He sold Wildstorm to DC, just so he could go back to just being a guy who draws stuff, and then he could just get a big paycheck from people as opposed to worrying about, how he's going to generate income, But anyway, that's your new publisher right now until, I think they get it all situated. And more likely, Jim Lee, if I had to guess, has probably surrounded himself with a lot of Dan DiDio's underlings who are probably telling him, what needs to be done, and he probably just lets them, do all the heavy lifting, do all the work, But this idea of Joe Quesada coming to DC, I just don't believe that. Not to say that couldn't happen. It has nothing to do with the fact that he worked for Marvel in that capacity, one way or another. It has more to do with the fact that, Rich Johnston of Bleeding Cool suggesting Joe Quesada in a hope of first of all, having a clickbaity title, get people to, read his content on his website, but also creating news that takes on a life on its own. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, I don't know how to explain it. You ever seen that movie, The Postman, where Kevin Costner, it's a great movie, you need to watch that. Kevin Costner's the postman, and basically he's this guy who goes around and does Shakespeare plays in the post-apocalypse. And that's how he gets paid a little bit. There's no real currency. It's just basically a free meal, free bed for the night. And one day he gets caught up with this gang, and he wants to get out of this gang. He runs from them, and he ends up finding in the dead of winter this abandoned post truck, mailman truck, whatever. And he steals the dead mailman's, the skeleton's postman outfit. He grabs a bag of mail and he hikes it to the nearest village, pretending to be a postman for the newly reformed United States. And it is a great movie. I love that movie. Never hear anybody talk about it though. I don't know why. But anyway, eventually that lie took on a life of its own, and people started believing that the United States was back. And then, the mail system took on a life on its own because a lot of people wanted to be mailmen too. And so that's how the United States was reborn in that post-apocalyptic world, And Rich Johnston is doing exactly the same thing. Nobody, as far as I know, is really talking about the idea of Joe Quesada, taking over as publisher at DC, I think that's just something he's putting out there so that it can have that postman effect. You say a lie often enough that it becomes true. And who knows? It may become true. Because he's put it out there in the ether now, and now people's talking about it. So, and if Joe Quesada became publisher at DC, honestly, I don't understand why they would got rid of Dan DiDio, because both men, I don't know, both men would be kind of interchangeable. I mean, I feel like when you combined Dan DiDio with Jim Lee, you get a Joe Quesada. It's I don't really see him being added to the DC roster, adding anything different from the publishing side of things. He'd be a great talent as an artist, or to be given over like a couple of titles to kind of rebuild, rebrand. Maybe that might be something to think about. But honestly, Dan DiDio, he was going to do the 5G thing, which was basically exactly what Joe Quesada already did with Marvel Comics, and it met with disastrous results. Everybody, well, not everybody, some people liked it. A lot of people just didn't like the idea of all their heroes being replaced with not whatever, just being replaced. So it's a lot to unpack here. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. I always value your opinions. You tend to be a lot more articulate and thoughtful than what I am. So please share those comments down below. And remember, this is CB Smallwood, and I will see you in the next video.